I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. Yes, I am hooked. Okay, the mayor is under the weather today, so you have me in his stead. Will the city recorder please call the roll?
Council President Steinhebel,
Here.
Councillor Dykstra.
Here.
Councillor Mann is absent. Councillor Salvage,
Here.
Councillor Olfers,
Here.
and Councillor Workman.
Here.
Thank you. On to the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items unless a councillor so requests. In this case, the items will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. We have the agenda, appointments, board minutes, council minutes, liquor licenses, right-of-way dedications. Is there a motion?
I'll move to accept.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. First up, we'll have some presentations, and the first presentation is by Santiam Excursion Trains. Do I have the representatives? Perfect. Come on up. And you want to make sure your mic is on and it's on with a red light, which is a little counterintuitive, I understand, so.
Yeah, red means go. Oh, okay, now I understand why I have a computer. Aha. I don't know if there's a good signal or not.
All right, we're good? All right, we're passing those around. You guys can look at both of the screen. I'm Nancy, Nancy Randall. I'm the director for Santiam Excursion Trains.
I'm Jacob Snodgrass, General Manager of the Albany Eastern Railroad Company here in Lebanon. Thank you for allowing us to take a few minutes to speak with you all. We thought that it'd be really helpful to kind of get what we do out in front of the City Council. We've been trying to make an effort to work with the City of Lebanon to a heavier degree to try to, help out in any way, shape, or form. And I think the reason why will become evident in our little presentation. So again, thank you for taking the time. Yeah. So we wanted to kind of tell you about ourselves and what we do and what role we feel that we play in the community. We started this back in 2014. I believe we talk about it in another slide, but we've been trying for a while to make this really great. And I feel like we have started to gain some headway, ahead of steam, so to speak. Santiam Excursions is now a subsidiary LLC of the Albany Eastern Railroad Company. It's its own company. And so we're kind of turning over a new leaf. The owners of this company are longtime residents, philanthropists, and entrepreneurs, Rick Franklin and Bernice Franklin. Based in this community for the last 40, 50 years. What we do is operate scenic tourist and excursion train rides along with some other tourist type deals with our bus that we own. We tend to lean more towards the historic equipment besides our bus, that being a retired TriMet bus from the 80s. Most of what we own runs from 1912 up to 1956. We work really hard to make it look good and represent our community.
So we began in 2014, like Jacob said, specifically around major holidays. So we were just running those more sporadically. Later referred to as SET, Santiam Excursion Trains. Like we said, it was run by the Albany and Eastern Railroad and its employees. The mission of SET grew to provide unique entertainment experiences for the community with a major focus on children and families. Increasing popularity grew our ridership numbers and the demand for rides increased, so we grew the company. Holidays such as our Candy Cane Express soon grew to be family traditions and began to bring people all over our state, all over actually all across the country, and we'll go through that a little bit later. And maybe many of you don't know that we actually run our rides out of this very building. So this is our train depot. When we run, this is where people find us on the map when they look us up, because we are in a train depot, so.
So we started in the last few years really seeing an increase in demand and an increase in ridership for our train rides. Something to do, especially in this area, can be very hard to find. And we finally were able to really break out and make this thing its own standalone business. So we've recently rebranded our look, our logo. We started an LLC instead of just doing it as a doing business as. And we kind of got a little crazy, not gonna lie. We went and bought a steam locomotive. I think most people who are local know about it.
Can hear it.
It can hear it, can smell it, can feel it as it goes by. Honestly, it's one of the coolest things I've ever been around in my life. There's only about 183 to 187 operative steam locomotives in America, maybe North America, which means that having this asset in our community is actually quite rare. And we'll get into some more of our shenanigans, so to speak, in a minute about it all, but
Yeah. So what we do, we provide themed and non-themed rides. Lebanon is fantastic. We love Lebanon, but we're not the beach, we're not the mountains. And so we've really focused on providing an experience on the train. And so what we run is the most unique venue that you can find. So we run these rides to the public and to the non-public. So we privately rent it a lot. That is what has increased the most for us in the last couple of years. So we have businesses local, as far as Salem and even we've had out of the area, but even especially local, we know some medical universities in this town and some healthcare institutions, some mills. They've all used the train and they all have continual rentals each and every year. It's a big part of the beginning class, like when they come in for a new class, their experience to welcome them to Lebanon. The professors love to bring them in with a train ride. So it's become a tradition, and we have a high demand for private rentals. We also support multiple nonprofits. Dayla's Blue Angels are our best volunteers. So they come on, they love to come on and serve our community, and then we support them and we help them raise money and awareness. Same with Bulb, Gateway Leadership Team, the Safety Town USA, and the Boys and Girls Club. They're a fixture on our train and a huge part of, especially our holiday season. We could not run it without those organizations.
going into some more of the community stuff here, we increased over a quarter. So 26% over 2021, our rides in 2022. We know for sure that we had at least 12,700 people on our trains in 2022. We know that it was more than that, but there was some open rides for first responders and stuff that we don't exactly know how many people actually hopped on. While a good probably 60% of that would be Lynn County residents, the other 40% we're bringing in from out of town. Eugene, Portland, Bend, Cottage Grove, Springfield, Salem. Surprisingly, a lot of people from kind of Medford, Roseburg area are driving up I-5 to come ride our trains. Additionally, the credit cards of people, that's how we tell is where their credit card are based. We've had people from New York, Florida, North Dakota, South Dakota, North Carolina, British Columbia. I think we had a couple international ones too from Europe, where we've had them on our train. And I think that that's really neat to be bringing people from not just outside our local community, but outside our state and even our country,
Right.
bringing them into Lebanon.
People travel is what we're saying to come see the train. This next year, 2023, the year that we're in, we so far are approximately about 150 scheduled trains. So again, we're increasing with a constant demand. Even just today, I had 2 inquiries for private rentals. Our increased ridership results in sold out rides. Almost every single ride is sold out now. Last year and this year, it's just increased to that. That's our standard now. So we're having to add rides all the time. We plan to run around every major holiday, especially as well as our themed rides. We had about about 300 little kids out here this last weekend just on an Easter egg hunt. So we've also, exciting news, we have purchased another steam locomotive. The Polson number 2, referred to as Skippy. The other one is Porky. Will soon be arriving to Lebanon. It's being ran now and used, but we're very, very excited, which just means more attention and just another unique thing to offer. Like Jacob said earlier, with we own 2 of less than 200 operative steam locomotives. That means Lebanon is now home to at least 1% of all the steam locomotives in the United States. And believe me, there are people who know this before I knew this. There's a whole world of rail fans out there who follow and know everything about these trains. And so they come to our community just to see that.
And to wrap this up on our last slide here, what this means, or what we feel that this means for the community, is that we are helping to bring in tourism, or at least be a part of that. And I know from looking at the agenda that tourism shows up about 3 times at least today. And so I feel that this is something that's very important for our community, both economically and as a quality of life thing. So we know for a fact that we get a lot of people here, around 13,000, give or take. 40% of those are from out of the area. And we're always hearing about what else is there to do here. We're going to come ride your train for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. You know, these people are, just trying to let everybody know these people are also looking for things to do afterwards. They're going to make a day trip from Portland. They want to go eat. They want to go shopping. They want to go see what else there is to see. And I think that that makes a really cool experience for people to come in, to be able to hit multiple facets that aren't necessarily related.
Stay at the
They could-
hotel.
Yep, stay at the hotel, super nice hotel. And really just have a great time in our community. Thank you for listening to us drone on about what we think is really exciting.
Yeah.
That's great. Any questions from council for Jacob and Nancy?
Is there any way to track data of how many people ride the train and stay here overnight? Any possible way to do that?
Yeah, we could. We haven't. I mean, I know that we haven't, but the system that we use automates a questionnaire that we make standard, and we can make it so they can't go past that without, like currently we ask them if they have any dietary restrictions. We could easily ask them, are you staying locally? And ask them we also, what's been really good to us is that this system that we use uses a follow-up survey for every ticket holder. And everyone, majority of them give us really good feedback. And some of it is stuff we can't change. They'll say there's a yard with a lot of, they'll talk about what they see from it. Like we can't change that, but they'll say, I didn't like this on the train, or you should add this, or, so we get a lot of feedback from our patrons.
That'd be interesting to know. I've ridden it several times. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I just want to congratulate you on your success. Sandy Mac Excursion Trains is wonderful to have in Lebanon. You're totally an asset to this community. I know you said it, but we're saying it too. So thank you for coming and sharing some information about Sandy Mac Excursion Trains today. So thank you.
All right.
For your time.
Thank you.
All right, up next we have, I'm going to pretend like I don't know who this is now. We have Rebecca Grizzle with the Chamber of Commerce for the Annual Tourism Transient Room Tax Report. Rebecca, would you come forward? Different seat for you than you might have been used to a couple years ago?
I'd have to move this. I'm a little shorter than Jacob. All right, good evening, everybody. I have with me Angie, who is in charge of our tourism committee, to help present and answer any questions that you guys might have. As some of you may or may not know, you're newer to the council. Many years ago, if you wanted to tap into these tourism dollars to add some money to your event, and the tourism dollars are transient room tax dollars from the hotel taxes. If you wanted to tap into that, you came and did a presentation like this to City Council and asked for $5,000 to start a Star Spangled Celebration. And we spent a lot of time, as I was a previous counselor, reviewing those requests. And so at some point we said, can the chamber take this? We'll give you a pot of money You guys be the experts. You guys listen to the people's requests and dole out this money. And so with that, we created a tourism committee, and tourism dollars weren't my problem anymore. And now I'm at the chamber, tourism dollars are my problem again. So I'm here to ask you to take them back. I'm just kidding, just kidding. No. So, as you know, part of our contract that we'll be reviewing later on this evening is to maintain a visitor center in Lebanon. So we do a lot of things. I'm telling you, these phone, email, outbound mail, and other collateral to visitors, a lot of that is with the train. We get a lot of inquiries, both people walking in, people calling and asking about the train and other resources in Lebanon. We handle the Welcome Neighbor program through the Visitor Center as well, which is when you're new to town, you can come to the chamber, give us your name and address. We make a note of that, and we give you a packet full of goodies from our local businesses, as well as a visitor's guide. So when you need a plumber, you know how to get a hold of a plumber. We are jam-packed for Strawberry Festival. Now, not since I've been at the chamber for 3 years, so we haven't had a good, like, in-house robust Strawberry Festival. This is going to be a really good one this coming up year. But people will traditionally have pre-bought their ride band, the wristbands for the rides and that kind of thing. And of course, if you want an entry into the Strawberry Festival Parade, that kind of thing, we are a central resource for that. And of course, we're helping people plan travel to neighboring communities. So if you don't have a smartphone, but you would like to visit a casino, you can come to the chamber and we'll print you out a little map and help you find your way to the casino. So we do a lot of that. But as far as the dollars that you give us, that you've entrusted with the chamber to give back out to the community to help people's events, we have applications that come in and they're reviewed by a volunteer. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sorry, also short. We have a volunteer committee of about 5 or 6 people. We meet either monthly or as applications come in. Some months we get little to none. So typically it's once a month. We'll sit down and review applications, make sure that they have enough meat in that application in order to justify giving the money to them. So we typically, we'll ask lots of questions. Sometimes we ask more questions. What is this event for? What is your budget? Those kinds of things. We don't just, write checks. But yeah, it's a good committee. We've been able to finally start giving money away again.
Yeah, during COVID times, of course, there were a lot of events that didn't happen. So, of course, during that time, we agreed with the city to not get funds for a period of time because everything was a little tight. So we're back to normal right now. I have heads in beds because that's how we kind of talk about it at the tourism committee level. Heads in beds means if you have an event that is going to be a multi-day event that's going to likely draw people to town, they're going to stay in a hotel, that's going to perpetuate that transient room tax dollars back into the pot to help bring more events to Lebanon. So that's kind of how we look at it. If it's a one-day event, it's not that we won't. If it's concerts in the park, and I'm going to show you some of the things that we have funded in this last, I think 14 months is when we went back through. Then we might say $500, but there's just a very minimal amount if it's not going to be something that causes heads back in beds. It's very, very nuanced how you're going to look at that. But originally the council wanted 25% for sporting events, 25% special events, 10% tourism connection with the big picture, 40% special projects. So we haven't really stuck to this in the last few years because we have a pot of money. If you are making an application, then and we have the money, we're not going to say, look, we only have money left for sporting events. But we do recognize as a committee that sports events, like say a softball tournament in Lebanon, that's a multi-day. It's very valuable. People are going to come to town. They're going to stay. They're going to fill up their gas tank. They're going to shop. They're going to do a lot of different things in Lebanon. So we do have some feelers out trying to make sure that people who put these events on or potentially put these events on in Lebanon know that when you do come seek money from this pot of money, this is to help encourage and bring things like softball events or a tournament or sporting events. I know that that's one thing. And those are priorities that you as a council today could change. You could come back and say, you know what, we've talked about it and we don't care about sporting events. We only want to do, these kinds of events. We serve at the will of council. So if there's anything that you see that you want done differently, we're all ears. So these are some of the ones we have funded. The Northwest Civil War reenactment, that's a pretty big deal. That's a 3-day event, and they do bring school children out. They get to see what the camps look like. They get to see the real action in the cannon action out in the fields. Welcome neighbor ads, again, that's to get the word out to say, hey, if you're here in town, come to the chamber. If you're new, we've got a welcome packet for you. Build Lebanon Trails, Strawberry Festival. There's some things that are very special projects. Strawberrians, we gave them $1,500 out of that pot of money to help buy a new limo. And that's not really an event, but that is something that does enhance tourism in Lebanon. And the committee saw fit to grant that request. Especially right now, since we had built up a pot of money, we do have a little bit of reserve. So, and we don't want to be seen as sitting on that. We're trying to make sure we get the message out to a lot of people. And we have had, actually in the last few months, we've really ramped up the amount of applications that have come in. So that's really it, unless do you have any questions for us?
Counselors?
What would you say your foot traffic is in your office?
I don't know if you've seen our
Drive-through.
office lately.
That's true.
Pretty low right now.
I don't know. That's a great question. It depends on the day. I would say in the summertime, we can be backed up 2-3 people at a time. Right now, it's very slow. We look closed. And just for the record, if anybody doesn't know, our office was sideswiped by a gentleman who was speed racing in the middle of the night. And we are, so we look boarded up and closed, but we are open. We are open. Come see us. So I have a good number for you.
But it definitely is seasonal.
For sure, for sure. There's not a lot of, Lebanon isn't a tourism destination. So unless if there's a train event coming, you can definitely tell there's people stopping in and asking, how do I get to the train depot? Or how do I, there's definitely a seasonal in the summertime. It's much more active.
Do you know how many beds for heads we have in Lebanon? I should probably, but I don't. You know
How many beds that we have in
how many motel
overall?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I do not know that. Nancy, do you know that? I don't know. Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, definitely. Once Boulder Falls opened up, this became a real pot of money, not like an Albany pot of money. Albany funds their visitors center so that, I think somewhere I know it's hundreds of thousands. I think it's about $400,000 a year. And you can have a pretty robust visitor center at that dollar amount.
Any more questions for Rebecca? No? I had one question.
Sure.
Just looking at the list of projects, these are all great projects. I'm wondering, like how often are projects maybe denied? And what does that look like? Does it just not meet a certain criteria or?
It's not fun.
No, the projects are rarely denied. If there really is a well-planned event, if it shows that they've done a budget, they've completed the application, it will bring people to Lebanon. Typically, we will at least fund at a lower level. If we feel like, especially we call it seed money. We'll give people seed money for the first few years till their event is up and running and self-sufficient. So, if we were, say, giving money 3, 4, 5 years and they weren't building their event, if they weren't generating more revenue year over year, we might start thinking about maybe not funding. But most of the time we are able to fund. We had one applicant that applied after the fact, after the event was over, and so we kind of went, nah.
You've
Yeah.
already done the work.
But I would say countering at a lower amount would be much more reasonable or much more common for us. If you're going to do a salsa festival or whatever, then that's probably not going to be a multi-day event. You may ask for $1,500 and we may say, that is a great little event and we love it and thank you for doing it. Here's $500.
Sure, okay. I was just curious. I didn't know if,
And we've
just what the
had
frequency
people
looked like, so.
rework their application,
Yes.
come back with more information, and that happens fairly frequently. And then after we get the bigger picture, we typically will fund it.
Yes, they've sent me back to an applicant before to say, we need more information and we might even fund this to a higher dollar amount. It seems like a really great project. So then I will then typically go back to the applicant and do some more back work for the next meeting.
Great, that's good to hear. And thank you again for taking on this project. I can't remember when it came up. I don't know if I don't think I was on council.
No,
It was
it
before
was-
me, but I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because we have had a couple one-off cases over the years. And it's much easier just to refer them to the chamber with that committee that can actually vet and go through each of those applications. So thank you for your time. And if there's no other questions for Rebecca
I
and.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I'd say thank you, but she already tagged me to work Tuesday.
All right, we're going to move on to public comments. First up, I have, let me read my spiel. Citizens may address the council by filling out a testimony comment card. Prior to speaking and handing it to the city recorder, each citizen is provided 5 minutes to provide comments to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. The city recorder will accept and distribute written comments at a speaker's request. So first up, I have Teresa Newman. And Nancy, will you run the timer for me? And I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6. So that's a half an hour. Represents a half an hour. So I'm going to try and cut people off at that 5-minute mark. Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it.
So I'm really excited to see you here tonight. Because we don't have a local paper anymore, I feel like, who is this beautiful person on our law enforcement? I'm assuming you're a new police. I'm a captain. Awesome. So what I want to speak about today is the other day, my family, we were going over the events of the last couple of years, and we're still kind of in shock about what transpired the last few years. And through it all, I've determined I'm never again going to be asleep at the wheel. I saw things happen even in our own community, which I love Lebanon, and I think you guys are doing a great job. But all that to say, things happen. Things don't always change, stay the same. So I've just been, this is a release valve for me to come in and be before you and share. You're all normal people. You all rub elbows with everyone out there, so you all know there's different groups and different thoughts, but I am representing my group. And every day, I see things that are just making me sick on a national level. And I think, well, it couldn't happen here in Lebanon, but things have happened here in Lebanon. And so I'm thankful for the government, but honestly, the radical left has just taken over everything in this country. And progressives, honestly, I think have made us progressively poor, weaker, and vulnerable. And if there's one thing that mainstream Americans like mine me have learned is that I need to be more relentless, more determined, more activated. Sometimes I'll say this and people will say, oh, you're on the far right. Well, no, I'm on the far bright. I really believe in a brighter future for every American, for brighter racial unity, brighter, safer, healthier communities. That's where I stand. That's what I'm representing. And I'm starting a local chapter called Vocal Locals. Anyone here that would like to be part of it, any conservative like me that would like to be part of that, to be informed, to find out what's going on here at the city council, and to talk about how to be effective, to speak, and to put feet to your actions, I welcome you to join me and be part of it. And I have people asking me all the time, why do you still live in Oregon? I'm sure you're aware, Oregon, especially Portland, is really on the map these days in not a good way. And I love Oregon, and I think, why should I move? I'm invested here. I have spent 45 years here. I've raised my children here. I hate what's going on, but why should I be the one to move? No, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to fight. And so that's why I attend these meetings. And it's why when instead of trying to address all the myriad issues that might come up here tonight and any other time, I just want you to know that we are not a silent majority anymore. We're an inflamed majority. We're out there and we're active. And I don't want to see what's happening in Portland come here, whether it's the homeless, no matter what it is, that is so negative, that is driving the news cycle, that is destroying places like Portland. I don't want it to happen here. And you know, you don't have to be a prophet to see what's coming down the pike. I don't think it's an exaggeration to see the next thing that could be happening here in our own community are things like censoring speech, gun control, pride parades in June, banning natural gas appliances, making fentanyl legal. Pick your poison. This is happening in communities all around the country that you'd never think would happen. So just for the record, Vocal Locals are here and you know where we stand. And I know most of you probably understand what I'm saying and feel that way, but it's just for the record, just so you know. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for providing comment and thank you for sticking to under 5. I appreciate that. Okay, next up I have Dawn Kelly. Oh, annexation. Thank you. Okay, next up I have Jeremy Gunther, and I'm just going to say on deck. Bill, you're on deck, okay? So you'll be after Jeremy.
Oh, hello. My name is Jeremy Gunther. I'm a citizen here in Lebanon. And over the last few meetings, there's been 1 or 2 people in this room that have made a statement I understand the statement, but it bothers me. And that statement is, the state of Oregon authorizes us to be a town. And you may know where I'm going with this, but the state of Oregon doesn't authorize us to do anything. We are governed by the people, for the people, with the consent of the people. Now, you can see a couple of examples in history. What was it? The Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. That's probably the most violent overthrow of a local government in U.S. history, where 2,000 of the local citizens stood up with the support of their community and drove the city council out. Here in Lebanon, I would say we had our own version of an insurrection this last election cycle. We took out those we disagreed with, all but one, and that one was a paperwork issue. So hopefully we see a much better city council. The point is the mindset that drives that statement is very, very pervasive. We've all been told that we are governed by those above us, but that's not true. The Second Amendment was given to us not to protect us from criminals, but to protect us from our own government, our own city councils, our own state. And that's why we carry weapons, to ensure our own peace and our own safety. And so that mindset just bothered me a little bit, and I'm hopeful that you all take this commentary as just a reminder that we're all being told one thing that isn't true. We're all being told that we are the slaves, the subjects. And we need to remind ourselves that, well, we have a lot more power than we think we do. And we need to stand up at the city level here at the city council and push back on the state when the state is telling us to do something, because they really don't have the authority or the ability to force us to do anything we don't want to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. And again, thank you for keeping to the time. I appreciate it. Bill Sullivan, you're up next. And after Bill, I have Dr. Jeannie Davis.
Evening, Mayor, Council, and Trey. Hell to get young. But anyway, I live on the north side of Century Park. And I don't know how many of you councilmen, grandfathers, fathers, and this and that have young ones that play sports over there. And they start about the middle of March. And the city closes the restroom at 4 o'clock. So how are them little shavers supposed to hold it while they're out there playing sports instead of having a place to go when they need to go? I haven't seen it, but I've heard some of the other neighbors say that they could just go around the edge of the building and go, which, like I say, that's what my squawk is tonight is I think the city ought to be able to keep them restrooms open, say till 6 o'clock or so when the kids quit practicing. But I've talked to the people that work the park and they said, well, we can't work overtime. Hey, donate your time for them little kids. Because I know damn well if they couldn't hold it, they'd be finding a place to go. That's all I got to squawk about tonight.
Thank you. Nancy, can you look into that for us? I will. Thank you. I appreciate that. As a parent of a baseball player too, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I would say even like even a porta potty or a best honey
Sure.
bucket there would be an alternative. You didn't have to have people coming and going to unlock it.
Yeah, whatever solution that may be. Thank you. On deck, I have Keith Murphy and then Dr. Jeannie Davis, you're up. We're moving quickly. Look at us go. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to come before you today to tell you that LDA is still active, the Lebanon Downtown Association. We are still working. So over COVID, we kind of had a hands-off board. We really put a lot of work on our Main Street manager and our promotions committee. Therefore, we no longer have a Main Street manager. We just let them do all of the work. So this year we have a new executive board. We're all in training and we have new board members, very active board members. We have new board members that came back to the board after being gone for a while. So we're really kind of doing board training. We did annual board training in February. Let's see what else. We are active as far as the business registry with the Secretary of State. We are in transition with our treasurer. So we're having a little learning curve on financials from one treasurer to another. So we will get those to you and to the city as soon as we get the bank signatures, transfers, and the treasurer transfers. And as you all know, we all have full-time jobs. So getting our schedules together to get 3 of us at the bank at the same time has been kind of a challenge. We are working with the IRS on our 990 forms for our nonprofit status. We will have those to the IRS before the tax deadline. So we will be in compliance with our nonprofit status as well. With all of that, the changes on the board, and we do have applications for our not our city manager, sorry. Not applications for Nancy's job, but we do have 7 applications for our Main Street manager right now. But we're not really interviewing for the Main Street manager in the sense that we really want to look at our financials and get those in order first. So we will have a complete Downtown Association report for the City Council and the city in May on past, present, and future and what we're working on moving forward. We still continue to do our work. We have cleanup day coming up in May. So we'll clean up Park Street, 2nd Street, and Main Street for the Strawberry Festival. We have concerts in the park that's already been scheduled. We're taking on the Cafe Rock is doing a summer series. So we'll put that with the Bands and Brews and have a little bit more entertainment downtown on Main Street this year. Family Pride Day has actually been moved to August or September. We really want kind of more people to come and participate in that. And I think the National June Pride Day just didn't work for our community. So we're still looking at that, but we're going to move that back a couple months. We still do flags on Main Street, shop small, trying to help our businesses downtown. And Shelley's talked about movies in the park. So we're going to try to work with the Kuhn Theater and really use Ralston Park a little bit more with movies in the park a couple nights a week. So that's kind of what I have. I just want everybody to know that the Downtown Association is really working hard to revamp, regroup, and get back on track.
Questions from council? Anybody?
Yeah, quick question. Have you been reinstated by the state?
Oh,
Because it was dissolved.
yeah, we are reinstated by the state. Secretary of State, we're active. We're an
Okay,
active
so you
registry.
filed your CT
Yeah,
12?
and it was just, yes,
Okay. That would be interesting to see.
yeah.
And when was the last time a 990 got filed? Or do you know?
No, I
2015.
don't know that I could answer that question. I know that we have to get those in right now. And with the transition of the board and the treasurer, it's just a process. It's a puzzle we're putting together right now.
Okay.
But yes, we will get those done.
And it is a puzzle.
It definitely is a puzzle, and we're all learning to put that puzzle together.
Deal with them a lot.
Yeah.
I think I appreciate you coming today. Obviously, there's some chat amongst the community about the Downtown Association. So, as we approach budget season, I think, more transparency and more communication with the council is going to be really helpful. So
Oh,
thank you again for
absolutely.
coming.
Yeah.
And
And we
from
just
there.
let our Main Street manager do all of this, and we all just kind of hands off. So now we're all hands on. So we're really regrouping and working together.
and you're the president, correct?
I'm the president.
Perfect.
yes.
It's good to have one point of contact, I think, for all of us up here. So thank you.
Yeah,
yeah.
you're welcome.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Anybody else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks both for coming. Okay, Keith, you're up next, and this is the final comment card unless anybody gets a last minute one in.
Hello?
Hello, Keith.
I have several. I would like to read a scripture in 1 Timothy 5, chapter 5, verse 8. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. We have a lot of street people right now, and we have especially one that sleep by I think it's by the furniture place, by that pizza place. I don't know what the name of it is. We don't eat out that much, but he sleeps there until about noon on the sidewalk. I thought that was against the law for them to sleep on the sidewalk. Yes or no?
Explain.
No
Boyle
answer,
versus-
okay. I'll go on.
We'll actually have a discussion, we'll have a discussion of this at some point later today, but no, in general, simply sleeping on a public sidewalk is not illegal. If that was the question.
Well, he's there almost every day. And he's there until about noon. So, you'd think our officers would do something about it, but they haven't yet. I also am wondering if our roads are going to be fixed. They're in terrible shape. Dead silence again. Who is BLT? Do they hire illegal aliens? No? Okay, I'll go on. Put the indigents across the bridge of Berlin Road and Grant. You guys have 3 acres there in the corner. That's a good place for them. Silence is deafening. Anybody have anything to say?
This is your opportunity to talk to us. I mean, we do our best to answer questions, but I'm not the mayor. I don't have all the answers to your questions. If there are opportunities to get back to Keith on anything, hopefully City Manager Brewer can do that. If there's any.
I will tell you, of the comments that you've made, I believe Trey addressed people sleeping on the sidewalk. The roads are in terrible shape. We have no resources to fix them, no money. And so they will, particularly residential streets, are going to continue to be in terrible shape. I'm sorry about that. We are not the only community in the state. Everyone's facing that. I couldn't begin to tell you who Build Lebanon Trails, which is BLT, has hired or not hired. They are their own nonprofit entity, not the city.
They are
And
what?
They are their own nonprofit. The Build Lebanon Trails is its own legal entity. So if you want to know who
but
they
you pay 'em.
hired, you need to talk to them. I don't know who they would hire.
But you pay them.
We do not pay Build Lebanon Trails anything.
Nope.
Pay us anything.
Well, it shows in this that they get X amount of money.
They
Where
get,
does it come from?
they raise grants.
Funding.
They provide grants to the city. They provide us with money to fund services. But we do not give them any money. We work with
Oh,
them to build
okay.
and maintain trails, but we don't give them any money. And then as in terms of putting indigents on 3 acres at Berlin and Grant, that property is not served by anything. There's not transportation from there. That is not a place that we're going to be putting people.
Well, it's not that far away from a store. Number one, you're going to have porta pots at the place that you're talking about putting them, right on Highway 20. You can put porta pots up there. So what's the difference?
There are differences. So
One of the big issues with a spot like that out of town is it'll turn into a camp, and that's what we don't want to happen. We're not advocating any kind of camp. We're just trying to provide a place to legally say you have to go here and sleep tonight. A place out in the country like that on the other side of the bridge, that'd be recipe for disaster.
That would
Well,
turn into
if you
Portland.
haven't been out there, have you?
Well, I know there's some homeless out there
Oh,
currently.
there's a lot of trash,
Yeah.
a whole lot of trash. And if you put them out there,
There'd be a whole lot more trash.
then
Okay, do
You
we have
can-
any more questions for
monitor them.
Keith? Sir, your time is up, but I want to make sure that we're being cognizant of the time, of any more questions you have. So if you can quickly wrap it up, since we kind of spiraled into a back and forth, that would be great. Nancy, will you put 2 minutes on there? Thank you. Go ahead.
Have you ever heard of E-Verify?
Again, this is your opportunity to provide comment to us. We're not going to engage in the back and forth at this point.
Well, that's all I have. We used to have 10 minutes, now it's 5.
I don't think we've
between
ever
the
had 10
three.
minutes, sir.
I know, I know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as the gentleman said, you know, you work for us. And you need to realize that.
I think we
Thank you.
all do. If you would like to meet with myself and Nancy after the meeting, you are more than welcome to. I sincerely mean that. Thank you. Okay. Kim, do we have any more public comment cards? Okay. With that, we're going to move on through the agenda. So next up is the public hearing, final public hearing for 2021-2022 Community Development Block Grant presented by Kelly Hart. Kelly, if you would come on up.
Hello, everybody. I can do a very quick conversation. Let me share my screen.
Okay, bear with me here. So I have to go ahead and read some of this words for the public hearing, excuse me. The purpose of this hearing is to invite the public testimony regarding the 2021-2022 Community Development Block Grant Program. The public hearing is now open at 6:51 p.m. The Community Development Director will provide her staff report. It's in the script, sorry, folks.
There we go. Good evening, council. Before you tonight is a closeout presentation for our community development block grant. I can speak tonight, I promise. The city has hosted the block grants to provide funding for assistance to help renovate some homes that are in need of it for some low-income families. As part of that, it is funded through the block grant program, and we act as a pass-through to Dev Northwest, who administers the program and does the work. And so we have our consultants with us. They'll introduce themselves and provide the final presentation of the successes and work that we've done with this money that we've gotten. So take it away.
Good evening. I'm Liza Newcomb, and I have to read from this because otherwise I won't know what to say. I'm the home repair manager at Dev Northwest. The Community Development Block Grant sponsored by the city in 2020 is complete, and I'm here to report on the success we've had helping homeowners in Lynn County. 8 projects located in Lebanon, Sweet Home, and rural Lynn County were undertaken, supporting 11 low to moderate income individuals. In spite of material and contractor shortages and drastic price increases, the program has dispersed successfully $287,500 in block grant funds for construction. The work includes roofing, siding, windows, doors, bathroom repairs and remodels, plumbing repairs and upgrades, including new service lines, heating system replacements, electrical upgrades, including new service lines and panels, and interior and exterior painting. For many of our projects, we were fortunate enough to partner with Community Services Consortium. They provided weatherization services to our mutual clients, which brought even more value to each project. Thank you to you and your staff on behalf of the homeowners whom we helped over the past 3 years, and for your continued support of Dev Northwest programs. I look forward to working with you again in the future. And let me introduce to you Russell LaRosa Snyder, the home repair coordinator for Dev Northwest, who worked most closely with the recipients of these funds. And he'll present you with a quick slideshow of some of the projects.
Hello. So this first home, it's a homeowner that lives out towards Sweet Home, directly off of Highway 20. This is the before picture, and just a few things to note. On the left, you can see the homeowner standing under a carport that her husband had built that was, he knew enough to build it, but not enough to build it well, and so it was an issue. Other things to notice, she has a ramp leading to her front door. It's hard to read, but there are address numbers on her house. And so then this is what her house looks like now. The carport has been torn down. The back wall was left, so she has privacy in her backyard. The contractor took it upon himself completely on his own to install the larger address numbers that are legible from the street. She has new paint. Every single one of those siding, that's wood cedar shake siding, every single one of those got penned and nailed. That contractor went through every single piece of siding. She also had a tree that was on the right taken down that was threatening her home. It was dropping branches, needles, roots were growing into her well that were right there. The contractor also did work on the inside that included flooring, trim. You can see there, oh, he also did a lot of work with drainage. Her home sits below grade of Highway 20, and so all the rain we get, all of that was draining towards her house. So she has 2 new drain fields for all the water that comes into her home. This is on the upper right, you can see this, her home, she has a lot of cats. She takes in all the strays, and so they're not always house trained, and her home, the flooring was shot because of cats going to the bathroom in her house. So now she has new flooring. She also has a new fence because the neighbor's dog was fairly aggressive. This is a homeowner that was in Scio. She's an older woman, lives at home alone, and the kitchen was redone, including a door to her bathroom, two doorways to her bathroom. The 2 doorways were, the one doorway, sorry, was widened to accept a walker. And then the rest of the kitchen was updated to make it more accessible for somebody that is older. Including bringing the fridge. The fridge originally wasn't in the kitchen. She would have to go into the next room to use her fridge. So the fridge was brought in to her kitchen. There was also new flooring placed throughout with no seams. That way she could walk throughout her whole home without worry of tripping and falling on any thresholds or lumps and bumps in the floor. This is a couple pictures of a homeowner that's in Sweet Home. Her roof, was it actively leaking? She had an active leak in her roof. Her siding she had cedar, beveled cedar siding that was fairly rotten. And so she got a new roof, she got a new electrical service, new electrical panel, pretty much all new electrical throughout. She had extension cords running from one room to another, no heat. So we were able to get her new cadet heaters in the wall and new siding. Speaking of partnering with Community Services Consortium, she also got new insulation, a new water heater,
Bathroom fan.
new bathroom fan. Yeah. This is a homeowner in Sweet Home again. She has her 2 grandkids live with her. And so they're the single bathroom in the home that this woman and her 2 grandkids use. It had asbestos in it, and it was fairly small, not set up well. So the bathroom was gutted. They had asbestos remediation come in and remove all the asbestos and a new bathroom. She also got a new, what you can see here is a new roof, and her chimney got coated. Her chimney leaked, and so the gray that you see is a primer that sealed the brick and keeps the water out. She also got new windows around the whole house. She went from single pane wood frame to double pane vinyl. And she also got a new electrical service. So here you can see some pictures of her bathroom. The left 2 pictures are the before, and then the right 2 pictures are the after, where she got a new, the tub's gone, and in its place is a shower. And she also has a pedestal sink to help make a little more room in her bathroom. This woman had, I guess what you can see in the pictures, she got a new roof, gutters. 1 chimney was removed, the chimney that wasn't being used anymore. She had a new skylight. And then what you can't see, she got a new electrical panel. She got GFCI in her bathroom, laundry room, and kitchen. She also got put on city water. In the summers, the longer summers, she was running out of water. And so she was stressed about having water in the summer. And so she got hooked up to city water. This gentleman lives in Tangent, and you can see he has a pretty big tree that was close to his home, dropping needles on the roof, and his roof was on its way out. So he got a new roof, he got new electrical panel. That his home's not very old, but the electrical service that was there was from the 40s or 50s. And so he got a new electrical service. He also didn't have water at the time that we started working with him. And a great well company came in and replaced a switch. It wasn't very much, just a couple $100, and that's all he needed to get his water back, but it was something that the loan was able to help get him going. And then the final thing that we did was we added a deck on his home, so he now has a safe space for family, friends, and people to come over to hang out with him. So overall, we provided support and funding for 8 home repairs and improved living conditions for 11 individuals in Lynn County. So thank you for your support.
Great, thank you. Any questions from counselors?
Just because I'm not familiar, what's your market? What's your audience? How do people find you?
We have marketing sheets that we have posted around town, and the city of Lebanon actually helps us out by putting the information on utility bills. So utility bills that are mailed out will have, if your home is in need of repair, please contact, or check out our website, Dev Northwest. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I know in the nonprofit community, Dev Northwest is well known. We work my group works in the housing, and my executive director is on a first name basis. I think he's got you guys on speed dial.
Yeah.
And I know we refer, and CSC and that sort of thing, they get a lot of referrals in.
Yeah.
So they're very well known in the community.
Yeah, we also have yard signs that have been really successful for us. So if we have a house that we're working on that's on a well-traveled street, we'll put a yard sign out, and that gets people interested, like, what's going on? It says funding supplied by Dev Northwest. What's that? Yeah.
I knew this answer years ago, but I forgot. Where does your funding come from?
So CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, is part of our funding.
And that's a federal grant?
Yes, it's from HUD.
Okay.
Yes. But we also have revolving loan funds. So when someone pays back the loan that they get from us, that goes into a revolving loan fund, and we loan it out again.
See.
Yeah. So we're working towards hopefully getting to the point where we don't have to ask HUD for money, because the paperwork is little overwhelming sometimes. Daunting. Good word.
Daunting, I think you call it.
Yes. Yeah.
So we are in a public hearing, so I just want to ask, is there anyone who would like to speak regarding the program from the audience? Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. All further discussion will be limited to council and staff at this time. Council, do you have any further questions for our partners here? No? Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the support.
So it's not appropriate for you to be making comments at this time. We can maintain order in this, all right? If you wanted to make public comments, we just closed a public hearing.
Public hearing. Everybody spoke.
All right. We will ask you to leave.
Has everybody spoke? Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Kel.
You give us
Appreciate your
5
time.
minutes, and they got to speak for how long?
Sir, this was part of a public hearing. This is, okay, let's go ahead and adjourn for 5 minutes. 7:04.
You treat
Okay.
Secondarily,
Oh,
you people are.
must be the same age. We're making Now you can sit at the big table.
There's a consistent theme of a little bit of that's not how it really works.
My chairs, dining room table sit low.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting back into order at 7:11, and we're going to move directly into an annexation. So this is a public hearing. The public hearing for annexation A2203 is now open at 7:11 p.m. The city attorney will read the required hearing procedures.
All right, what everybody's been waiting for. Tonight's hearing will be pursuant to the quasi-judicial procedure set out in ORS 197.763. At the start of the hearing, all city council members will be asked to disclose any ex parte contact or conflicts of interest or bias. If you have any questions as to what those are, please feel free to ask, and we will try and answer. The hearing will start out with a staff report, which includes information that the staff believes is relevant to the issues and how they apply to the city's comprehensive plan and land use regulations. After the staff report, council members are allowed to ask questions of staff. Following this, the hearing will then be opened up for public testimony. The applicant and proponents of the application will go first, as they have the burden of proof. Any opponents to the application will have a chance to be heard, and finally, there will be a chance for rebuttal if necessary. Testimony may be in oral or written form, but must be directed towards the criteria outlined in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the city's land use regulations. Any issues raised must be accompanied by statements and evidence sufficient to allow the city council and party members an opportunity to respond. Please note that failure to raise an issue, including constitutional issues, by the close of the hearing will prevent an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Following the close of the public hearing, all remaining discussions will be held amongst the council members. The council may approve or deny the application or approve an application with conditions for approval so long as they are supported by the facts of the case and the land use regulations. With that, you may ask if there's any conflicts of interest, bias, or ex parte contact.
Do any counselors wish to declare ex parte contact, conflict, or bias?
Nope.
Is there anyone in the audience that objects to the notice that was sent in this case or the jurisdiction of this body to hear and consider this case? Seeing none, will the Community Development Director please present the staff report?
Thank you. Before you tonight is a request to annex a 3.92 acre parcel on the east side of Hansard Avenue, south of Reeves Parkway. The property is located within the city's urban growth boundary, and the comprehensive plan designation for the site upon annexation is industrial with the initial zoning designation of industrial. The property is contiguous to city boundaries and is therefore eligible for annexation. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for this matter on March 15th and found the application complied with all the required decision criteria and unanimously voted for the City Council recommendation to approve the annexation. As part of the agenda packet, we have a lengthy staff report and recommended findings as to how the annexation meets the criteria for, the proposal meets the criteria for annexation. Generally speaking, it is contiguous to city boundaries. It is eligible and able to be serviced by city utilities, as all city utilities are already existing within Hansard Avenue, and the street is fully improved. And the property owner accepts the initial zoning of industrial for the site, so no further facility analysis is needed at this point in time. So with that, I can conclude my staff report on the matter. I do want to just provide one point of clarification. Within parts of the agenda packet itself, there is a old version of a narrative from the applicant, which did identify a requested change to the zoning. But through conversations with city staff, that request has been removed from the table. And so the only proposal before you is the annexation. So just provide that clarifying point. And so with that, I'll conclude my staff report. I'm available for questions.
Hey, does council have any questions of staff? No? At this time, I'll ask for the applicant's testimony. Just a reminder, if the red light is on, your mic is on.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Don Kelly. I'm a lawyer from Silverton, Oregon. And I've got to say, I'm really impressed with how alive this community is. I've sat in a lot of city council meetings in a lot of communities, and I'm impressed. And I also wish we had a train. I wish we
Well,
had
just wait until it
Those
goes
are the
off
people
while you're
talking.
talking.
You can't have
Can't
ours.
have ours.
Yes, exactly.
I represent Integrity, the applicant in this case, and with me is Mr. Tipikin, who is the owner of the applicant, Integrity. I want to thank the planning staff and the community development director for their courtesy and being very helpful to us in sorting through this process. As Ms. Hart stated, the planning staff did a very thorough report here, and it demonstrates that all of the criteria of your code are met, both your comprehensive plan and your development code. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this. We're here to answer any questions. If you have any questions, I don't want to repeat everything that's been said, but we request approval of the annexation and request that you adopt the ordinance. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to try to respond to them.
Okay, thank you. Any counselors have questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this annexation? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this annexation? Okay, with that, the public hearing is closed at, what do I got, 7:17 p.m. All further discussion at this point will be limited to City Council and staff at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, counselors, any questions or any questions for staff?
I have, I guess, a new guy question. Since
Okay.
this was originally tried to be a multifamily complex, I have to assume that was kind of the goal in the first place. Is there, since it's back to this and it's zoned residential, what happens if they come back and request a rezoning?
I
Just
kn-
because I
it
don't know
is-
that.
Well, we
Zoned
address that when
industrial.
they make the request.
I thought that's the
Yeah.
case. I'm not sure. I asked the same question in planning commission, didn't I?
I asked the same question earlier today of Kelly, so.
So, actually, that raises a question. Were you on the planning commission when this came before the planning commission?
No,
Oh, okay. So that's why when you asked that, I was like, what?
no, I think I asked the question with that big, long packet of.
Yep.
So I think that's what Kelly was answering for me.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. With that, will the city attorney please read the title of the resolution? Oh, ordinance.
Ordinance. Ordinance Bill number 2023-08, ordinance number 3003, a bill for an ordinance annexing and zoning property following consent filed with the city council by landowner in said area pursuant to ORS 222.120 and ORS 222.170, file A22-03, Integrity Investments LLC.
Great. Do I have a motion?
Move
For approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So next on our agenda is the Lebanon Chamber of Commerce Tourism Agreement presented by Nancy Brewer.
Thank you. As noted in your packet, we have an agreement that's several years old and needed to be updated. There are some basic updates just in terms of clarification of language. The only really significant change is that the chamber has reported that they really have no visitors on Saturdays except during things like Strawberry Festival. And so they would like the contract amended that the visitor center would not have to be open on Saturdays unless staff asked or there was a special event. So they would expect to be open during Strawberry Festival. If there was something else coming up, we thought they should be open during the Gambler 500, for example. We could file that request with them and say, can you make sure you've got somebody available? And they would do that. And I think from staff's perspective, we are okay with that. So with that, Ms. Grizzle is here and can answer questions if you have any, but otherwise staff recommends approval of the revised contract language.
Any questions of Nancy or Ms. Grizzle? Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. And I was remiss in not mentioning when I was up here earlier, thank you guys for everything you do. This is a terrible job that somebody has to do, and nobody appreciates it more than me, so.
Thank you. You can reserve your comments for public comments at the beginning or the end of the meeting. Goodbye.
Yeah, you're Grizz.
All right, we're moving on with the agenda. Number 4, repealing and replacing Lebanon Municipal Code, presented by City Attorney Trey Kennedy.
Thank you. I think we've all had a chance to look at and talk about a lot of the changes that we are proposing as it relates to the illegal camping and protection from the elements ordinance, as well as which are contained in 12.12 and 12.14. I have to compliment much of the staff at the city and how much time they've spent on some of these things. Sometimes the legal issues, just interpreting cases and stuff like that, is kind of the easy part. Taking that and put it into something that also then doesn't later violate those same legal cases is a little different. And I think Kelly spent a lot of time on this. We've had a lot of revisions, a lot of review. Certainly not perfect, as I put in there. It's not a solution, Lebanon solution to homelessness. It's not a solution to providing opportunities as it relates to getting, transitioning people out of homelessness into society. All of those things, I hope this council has an opportunity to address sometime in the future. This basically gives the police and local authorities the ability to regulate in some meaner manner where some of this can occur. That's pretty much all it does, is provides an opportunity for them, for the police, for law enforcement to say, listen, we understand you have a fundamental right to sleep, to stay warm, to find protection from the elements, and here's a location where you can do that. Because they can do that, they can then regulate where they can't. That's kind of the gist of the ordinances. I've put in a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo into the memo. Hope you all enjoyed it. But other than that, if you have any questions, again, I would assume that Nancy has a few words to say about this as well, as she, she can cite half this law better than I can. And her and Kelly both probably, I don't see Kelly up here, but she should be. Oh, you don't want to take credit? Okay. But anyways, this is what we have. And as later on, when we get a little bit further along in the process, we will bring a resolution identifying a location. As you know, we're working on that.
I believe that he mentioned your name as wanting to speak on this as well.
He did.
I assumed.
Football.
There was an assumption there, so.
There is an
yeah.
assumption there. It's a faulty assumption on his part. This is one part of the work we've been doing in terms of addressing what we currently have in code language associated with parks, where we say things like you can't have tents and you can't sleep in parks. So this is addressing that language. I think one of the key elements from the staff perspective is moving from dusk to dawn to specific hours that parks are open, which will make it much clearer when people can be in parks and when they can't. We are moving forward with this tonight with an implementation timeline of July 1st to give staff the opportunity to create and install new signage in all of the parks with, again, park hours. If you go to any of, this gate closes at dusk. Sometimes that can kind of leave you wondering exactly what time dusk is. And so the hard hours, I think, will make it much clearer for everyone in the community. So this is the first phase. I am hopeful that at the May council meeting, we will be here discussing potential locations for overnight people to seek protection from elements overnight. We are still working on alternatives. I do not have any hard information for you on that at this point. And I'd answer questions, but I'm going to make Trey answer them.
Well, and one other point, this would also regulate sidewalks, although I see up here the gentleman is gone.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions from counselors?
How does this language affect like the use of Century Park basketball courts after hours?
After 10?
Well, I know
I would say, so if you think about it, right now, that park closes at dusk. So 4:30 in December, park is closed and you shouldn't be playing basketball. This would have that park open until 10 p.m. all year round. And so if you want to play basketball at 8 o'clock at night on December 31st, that will be your option.
Right.
We have noise ordinances too. I mean,
There are noise ordinances. So if you're being really loud, you're having, you've got your boom box playing tunes and you're bothering neighbors, you'll probably get police coming out to say, can you pipe down because the kiddos are trying to sleep or whatever, but just the act of playing basketball, I think as we talked about use of parks, officially, if the park closes at dusk and you're out walking your dog around the park at night, you probably shouldn't be, right? The park is closed. If you are a couple of teenagers sitting on a picnic table, to use an old-fashioned term, necking,
What does that mean?
you probably shouldn't be in the park after dark, right? And yet we do know that people use the parks after dark for a variety of reasons. People go for walks after dinner. There are a lot of people who do that or go early in the morning before the park is officially open. So I think trying to make those hours clearer, and they do match with the noise hours when you can make noise. So again, trying to find that 10 p.m. quiet zone for everything then matches up. So that's a lot of why we settled on the 7 a.m., 10 p.m. is that's when you can be noisy out in your garage, hammering on stuff and those kinds of things.
Now, I didn't grow up in Lebanon, but I assume you're talking about the all-night basketball games that
Yeah.
were
And
historically done at
not
Century
to-
Park.
Not to split that hair too thin, but can it be assumed that the same level of enforcement would be in place as there is currently?
Yes.
I would assume so.
Well, what do you
It's a-
mean by
it-
currently?
Not
Well,
much.
there's people, if it's supposed to close at dusk, it's a lighted court. People play after dusk.
They
So-
do.
And it doesn't cause a problem, so I assume it's not an enforcement.
It's more
I
a complaint.
think
This
it
is more
is-
of a
Well, I will
complaint.
say on the record is we're
Complaint
going to
driven.
enforce the rules the same for everybody.
Yeah, but
yeah, I
it
don't
is
see why we
currently,
wouldn't.
it is currently complaint driven.
Okay.
So, and I don't think, unless a police officer drove by and was hearing a lot of noise or seeing, a basketball game that's turned into a fight, I doubt that they would stop it today. But if neighbors are calling saying there's a lot of noise, they would go and respond.
I got you. Thank you.
Sure.
That's a good question. Thought that through.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I look forward to the May meeting, identifying a space, but this gets the first step out of the way and moving forward. So with that, I would entertain, will the city attorney please read the title of the ordinance?
A bill for an ordinance repealing and replacing Lebanon Municipal Code Chapters 12.12 Parks and Public Places and 12.14 Park Hours and Park Closure, Ordinance Bill number 2023-06, Ordinance number 3001.
Thank you. I call for a motion.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Next up, so we're going to recess as the Lebanon City Council and convene as the Lebanon Renewal Agency.
Gotta bang your gavel.
I get that, but I'm looking for,
It's not a hearing.
okay. We will now reconvene as the Lebanon Renewal Agency at 7:29 PM. Okay. Presentation by Kelly Hart. It says laminated motion for procedure, and I don't have it. So I'm a little out of water here. Bear with me. We're all right. We'll make it through. Good evening again. Before you tonight is a interesting, complex process that equates to a very simple thing that we're trying to do.
Kelly, turn your mic on, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's try this again. Before you tonight is a two-step process to amend the North Gateway Urban Renewal District. As it sits right now, the district has funds, has money. What the city is trying to do is to expand the district area by a very minute percentage to include a street section, which receives a large amount of the traffic within the urban renewal district area, which is serviced by it and gets benefits from the urban renewal district. That street segment is failing. And so the intention through this process is to incorporate that street into the urban renewal district so the urban renewal district can fund the repair of that street, as well as signalization of the intersection of Highway 34 and 5th Street. So the steps that we're going through tonight is the Urban Renewal District makes a determination as to whether or not they want to accept this amendment. If it is accepted, then the next step in a couple of agenda items is for the City Council to adopt an ordinance accepting this same exact amendment. So after this item, you'll see me up here doing this exactly again in 2 items. So if there's any questions, I'm available. Other than that, I'm available for questions. Like I already said. So I
Any
conclude my
questions of
report.
Kelly? Okay. Will the city attorney please read the resolution?
Resolution number 2023-02, a resolution of the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency authorizing a council-approved amendment to the North Gateway Urban Renewal District's boundary and project list.
Okay, call for a motion.
I move.
Is moved by Counselor Dykstra. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So continuing as the Lebanon Renewal Agency, Ms. Brewer, you were up for the amendment to economic development agreement with Larry and Nikki Spires.
Thank you. And I believe Mr. Spires is available on Zoom and may want to speak. The Spires have a economic development agreement for the Mill Race Urban Renewal District. This was put in place in June 2017 and is a limited duration EDA, but did not take into account that the first couple of years of that EDA were really spent in planning before any infrastructure was put in. So there's not been a lot of infrastructure refunding that's been done by the district. So Mr. Spires' first amendment request is to extend the timeline on that agreement for that 2-year period and extend by 2 years the time that he gets 80% of the tax increment before it moves to 75%. The second amendment, as he's developing this property, there are parcels that are being placed into joint ownership. He wants to make sure that as long as he maintains 51% of the ownership value, he is the entity putting all of the development and incurring those costs. So he would be the only entity that would be receiving the EDA monies from this urban renewal district. There is an addendum attached that city attorney drafted, and the Spires have agreed works for them, meets their objectives. So this is asking you to approve that amendment. And I don't know if Mr. Spires is on and. Okay. Okay. Mr. Spires, can you unmute so we can hear you?
Yes, and I am present.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you hearing me?
Yes. We do hear you.
Okay, very good. Yes, I would first like to just say that my wife and myself have been lifetime residents of Lebanon. We have had other developments in Lebanon over the years. Edgewater Square is one residential area in Wheeler Street that we're very proud of. And we all at this point in time just simply want to say that back in 2017, that the acceptance and the cooperation from the city staff, the city manager, the mayor, Trey, supporting our request that some agreement be entered into to help us in recouping our investment in the infrastructure of the development of Millray Station. The issue at hand, I want to say first and foremost, is that we are not asking for additional funds. It was agreed upon in 2017 of what that budget most likely will be, and it was agreed upon, and that still remains the number. There's, in addition to what Mrs. Brewer has mentioned about the fact, and it was an innocent oversight on all of our part, and including myself, is the fact that we put this agreement in force the day that all signatures were placed on the document, not thinking about the fact that it was a bit premature in establishing the date when it was, because we had a lot of engineering, a lot of permits still remain to be completed. The other problem that exacerbated this issue is that the old term that we have used so many times in the last couple of years, and that is the COVID issue. The issue of the contractor not being able to secure the materials to go forward, both in construction of buildings and also for the infrastructure. The lack of employees simply because of the COVID impact. And then also the impact that it has had on many of us of wanting to employ people who have been well provided with funds from government programs, that simply there's no initiative for them to come to work because the government is supplying more money than they made at their job. So at this time, we would just like for you to understand that this is a beautiful project that we're developing. I hope you all have had an opportunity to go out and see what is happening. And we anticipate the construction year of 2023 to bring forward some housing. A gated community that we have talked about in the past will now come about. So I thank you very much. And I want to say to each and every one of you council members, I'm not sure that I know any of you or one or two of you perhaps, but I thank you for the time that you spend in taking care of business for the city of Lebanon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have questions for Mr. Spires? Okay. Any questions among council? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the economic amendment to the economic development agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We will now adjourn as the Lebanon Urban Renewal Agency and reconvene as Lebanon City Council. And moving forward, I would like to call, you're already here. Thank you. Kelly Hart with the approval of a minor amendment to the North Gateway Urban Renewal Plan.
Yes, so a while ago, the Urban Renewal Agency approved an amendment to the North Gateway Urban Renewal District. If you all could remember from that far away. And
Vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
vaguely familiar, I'm glad to hear. At this point in time, it is before the city council to consider that same amendment for expansion of the area and inclusion of the project to do the street modifications. And so if you need me to go through the whole presentation again, since it was a while ago, I can, but other than that, I can answer any questions and conclude my report.
Any questions from council? Okay, if not, will the city attorney please read the resolution or ordinance?
Put it on loop.
Ordinance bill number 2023-07, ordinance number.
Your microphone.
Your mic's off. You want to start over? Please.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Ordinance bill number 2023-07, ordinance number 3002, an ordinance of making certain determinations and findings relating to and approving the North Gateway Urban Renewal Plan Amendment to add property and add a project.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, next up, renewal of city attorney and municipal court judge contracts.
Thank
Nancy
you.
Brewer.
Thank you. As you all know, the contract that you have with the municipal judge and the city attorney both expired June 30th of 2023. assuming that there need to be successor relationships. I didn't want to assume that you wanted the same relationships with the same firms and people. B, who you would want to have negotiate those agreements. Traditionally, the city attorney has negotiated the judge's successor agreements, and either the city manager or the mayor has apparently negotiated city attorney agreements. So I'm just wanting to double check that you want to continue the agreements with Morley Thomas Law Firm and with Judge Gerald Waite, and that you would then identify who you want to have as lead negotiators for those. I'm not necessarily looking for a motion, more as just direction from you all about where to go with those two.
I don't know, putting up with Trey some more?
I know it's a challenge, but
We could get worse.
Just so you know, I'm not asking to negotiate my own contract, but if you want to.
We are not asking you to negotiate your own contract. That's not happening. So remind me again who in the past has negotiated with the judge?
so Trey has negotiated with the judge.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Continuing, moving forward? Okay.
And then
Let me clarify a little bit, because generally that's true. What the direction that I remember getting almost every time was, hey, we're going to renew this contract. Why don't you talk to the judge? So if ever the city manager or anybody else has recommendations that they want to see in the contract, please feel free. Because usually it's been a call to Judge Waite, hey, you want to still do it? Yep. And then we draft a contract. So when we're referring to negotiations, there hasn't been a ton of that.
Okay. Well, you're still tapped to do it, so thank you for your service. And the second piece is who handles the negotiation with?
so it would either be
Trey?
me or Mayor Jacola.
Can we have, since he's not here tonight, can we have both of you do it together?
Sure, we can make Trey miserable jointly.
No, I mean, Mayor and you. Yes, okay.
Yes.
Oh, make Trey, yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Why does that make you happy?
It does. It more makes me happy just to assign somebody to something that's not here
You want to
tonight.
get a good deal, just take some cinnamon rolls to the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Is everybody okay with that, having Nancy and Mayor Jacola?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
That's the end of that. Thank you. City Manager's report.
Okay,
You're still
so
up.
I actually have stuff to talk about tonight. First off, as we've been noting in the written report, we have converted payroll to ADP as a payroll processor. As I note in my written comments, it's not been without bumps, but they have been pretty minor bumps. I think one of the biggest ones is you all got AFSCME dues withheld from your first check. That's been corrected because you're not members of the union. There you go.
I was going to go out on strike.
Kind of disappointing.
I will say part of this was driven by some court cases, for example, that have come out. State rules from the Department of Labor, for example, have come out and been very clear that the employer is responsible for employees' time and time reporting. And they have made decisions in cases where an employee got a 29-minute lunch break instead of 30 minutes that became overtime and needed to be compensated. I will say subsequent to writing this, we have discovered that there also has been a class action suit that's been decided. It was brought against Home Depot for longstanding practice of rounding. So as long as you were, clocking in between 8 minutes before or after the hour, it counted you as being there for the hour. And the lawsuit settlement basically came out and said the state law is it's minute by minute. So if you clock in at 7:57 and you clock out at 5 o'clock at the end of the day, you had 8 hours and 3 minutes of paid time, which by the end of your week could make you, 40 hours and 7 minutes in total for the week. This is leaving a lot of people going, kind of head explode. And I will say that across the state, employers are trying to figure this one out. But it is those kind of decisions that are driving us to the need to have time clocks that actually say, not, I worked 8 hours every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but I clocked in and I clocked out for lunch and I clocked in from lunch and I clocked out at the end of the day. And so I am being compensated correctly. Yes.
I do have one question. I understand the need to safeguard future litigation. How does that work for the police department with shift work? Because they'll go on and they might work 2 hours and something happens, or they might work 18 hours because
So,
of late cases or what have you, a crime scene.
so several things. One is, in the labor agreement, police officers have paid lunch hours, so they don't have to clock out and have 30 minutes off. They can, and I'm going to say, they would say frequently are interrupted in their lunch period because there's a call. And I will say they are scheduled for a 12-hour shift, but if you get a car accident at 5:45 in the morning and you're scheduled to go off shift at 6, you're going to work the car accident until it's done. And that includes working the site of the accident, working cleanup after the accident, returning to the office and writing the report while everything is fresh in your mind, and you may be working until 9 o'clock in the morning. That's paid overtime at that point. And so that remains time that you are clocked in, and it calculates on the hours.
So how do we handle when officers quite rightly show up an hour in advance of their shift to get their gear ready, check their paperwork from the day before, get their cars ready? Are we clocking them in? So
I'm
that
gonna look
now
at
we're
Kim.
doing overtime? Because we want to be able to let the off-going shift get out when they're supposed to as much as possible.
That is correct. So they are clocking in. If, they get there 5-10 minutes early, if they're going over their emails or talking to the next shift briefing, they are getting paid for that.
So if they're showing up a half hour early to get things done, is that typical?
A half an hour, they come in and they get changed. It's not necessarily half an hour, but if for some reason they have to come in a half an hour and there is extra,
So we're incurring some additional overtime.
absolutely.
How is that working on the budget?
It's not happy.
How does that so my question is then, okay, so I come in, I start at 8, but I got there at 7:30, but I forgot to clock in. I mean, are there a ton of like corrections that have to go through, or?
There are some corrections. I will say, you go to some offices and there are signs at the door when you go in, clock in, and when you go out, did you clock out, kind of thing. Trying to remind people, if you forget, you can contact your supervisor and say, I forgot to clock in. There is the ability to go in and enter your time and put a note on that says, I forgot to clock in this morning. I came in roughly 7:45. I know the police department, for example, when people stay late, have a long-standing tradition of using paper forms to note, what were you working? You were working an accident, you were working a homicide, you were in a trial, in court, so that we can kind of track how much time is being spent in those extra hours. We also have things like callbacks. So if we send, it's the end of the day, our wastewater treatment plant operators go home, they get an alarm at the plant, they return to work, they're going to get paid, I want to say 2 hours of callback. They may come in and work 15 minutes, but they're going to get paid. They're in their labor agreement to be paid that callback. Police union has a similar kind of a provision. I think there are people who come to work early, but they don't start work.
Right.
And so the goal here is to clock in when you start work. And if you come in and you start work at 7:45, you're opening the till to be prepared to take payments when customers walk in the door, and you turned on the coffee pot for everybody, that should be compensated time because you're working.
No, I agree.
Some of that can be addressed in schedules in terms of setting work schedules for employees. Some of it may be scheduled in flex time. So, I like to work out over my lunch period. And so instead of taking 30 minutes, I want to take an hour, and I'll come in at 7:30 in the morning to make
Flex
up that
time.
difference. Right.
Yeah.
Flex time. That is available to some employees. It's not available to everybody.
Yeah, my concern is that, I don't want to end up hamstringing the folks like the police with time constraints. And I also don't at the same time want to necessarily blow up the budget with overtime.
I agree.
So it would be interesting to see, because I know we just started this. I would be interested in like a half-year dip check to see how we're doing? And what is it doing for the officers and what's it doing for the budget? Because we got to be able to pay them. If they rack up a bunch of overtime,
I agree. We have to, but I think it's also important to recognize if they've been working those schedules and not getting paid, that's also incorrect, right? If we are asking you to do the work, we should be compensating you and we should be tracking that. And we should know what we're asking of our labor force.
were they not being tracked for overtime before?
Not necessarily, because you had a paper timesheet and you would put, I worked my 8 hours, or I worked my 12 hours, or I worked my 10 hours for the day. And
Or I worked my 15 hours.
or I worked 15 hours, or I had 3 hours of callback, or whatever. It was manual. I would say in some cases, somebody works 3 minutes over, it's not costing us a huge amount. Somebody works several hours over, it will cost. But we don't have people working extra just to work extra.
I understand.
They are working that time.
I know. I would appreciate something at a half-year mark saying, here's how it's going, this is what it looks like.
Okay, can do that.
Kind of feels like a departmental management issue more than, this is how people keep time with their, I know we have a budget. I'm not going to split hairs with people who are serving us because they're 5 minutes earlier, even a half an hour early. But if that's an issue, I'm sure the leadership there would take care of that.
Absolutely.
That's true. Management assigns work. So there you go.
And we can let her work all we want because she's on salary.
That is correct. She is a non-union employee, as am I, and as is Brent and Kelly and Ron. So
And apparently all of us were for a month.
you all,
We were union members.
I will say you all
Those are
get,
good times.
y'all get
Moving-
lunch. So
Moving on.
Okay.
second up.
Thank you for
the
letting me interrupt you.
So the Lynn County Multi-Agency, I don't remember the C now, Consortium or something.
Consortium.
Lynn County MAC is what it's called. Started meeting last week. This is the group that is working on getting access to the state monies for homeless services. Lynn County has declared a homeless emergency. We had one meeting last week. We have 3 meetings scheduled this week.
Another one tomorrow.
It is, it's a little overwhelming. The meeting that we have scheduled for Friday, and I think as counselors, you may have invitations on these. The meeting scheduled for Friday, we'll start talking about kind of the workbook that you put together to say what it is you can or will do with these resources. I think,
If we get resources.
as I say, I think there are some frustrations because the strings on this, the money will need to be spent relatively quickly. We did find out Monday, the money that the state originally pegged for the specific counties, but not the larger part of the state, the rural counties, all has to be spent by like January 10th, 2024. Rural counties came late to the dance. We are behind everybody else. They did express on Monday that we would be given longer than January 10th of 2024, but we don't know how much longer at this point. I think frustrations around, it's got to be something new. It is not for building things. It would be for example, adding beds in a shelter, but not creating a shelter from whole cloth. And then what some of the requirements are for a shelter are going to be challenging, I think, to meet in that timeline with some of the supply chain challenges that are out there in terms of can you even get a bathroom building? How would you have cooking facilities in a building or in a, say, a managed camp? And the money is really not pegged for ongoing operating costs. So we have made clear from the city's perspective and got a lot of thumbs up from like Sweet Home and Albany and the other cities on the call that not having money for ongoing resource needs, mental health counseling, rehab beds, those kinds of things is a significant challenge, and the state needs to come to the table with those dollars. So I wanted to update you on that. The meetings are just kind of being scheduled and thrown out there with a, boy, I hope you can drop other things to get to them. So,
2 o'clock tomorrow.
2:00.
yeah, 2 o'clock tomorrow and then Friday morning at 9, I think. So, so we have multiple people. Dave and Dela have been on both of the calls so far. Kim was on the call Monday. I was on the call. Kelly was.
Yeah, I was on the call.
KJ was on the call, as was Michael from Crossroads. So we are trying to get Lebanon voice at the table. We are having a really good representation from Community Services Consortium in terms of what they can do. One of the biggest wins out of this may be work they do already in terms of helping people with rent to stay in apartments so that they don't become homeless. And this would be in particular people who might be on the edge of being evicted because they can't make rent, they got laid off at their job, or they got an injury and couldn't work for several weeks. And when you live paycheck to paycheck, 2 weeks off of work can tank everything, right? And you're deciding, is it groceries or rent? And the kids need the groceries. So I think CSC is going to be a really good partner for all of Lynn County in terms of helping to get some of these resources out, should we be able to make them available. But I wanted to keep you all up to date on that. And then good news, SafeWise, which is an entity that works on kind of residential safety, named Lebanon number 9 on the safest cities in Oregon this year. So they look at crime statistics, and ours are pretty good, relatively speaking. So we're in a nice neighborhood for that. Yeah, and that's all I have.
Any questions for Nancy? I want to highlight one thing in the report. I'm mainly a little bit picking on him just because he's here. And that is where did it go? Oh, I had it in front of me. The use of force incidents for PD. I just wanted to flag that for you guys to review. I do appreciate that he puts these in here. Chief Stevenson in administration put this in here every month so we can review those. And I know this is kind of the annual report, so just take a peek at that. And again, I appreciate that those appear in our packet each and every month. So go ahead.
I wanted to bring something out from the report also. I already talked to Ron about the sewer lateral program. I don't know how many of you are aware that we run that, where we help pay for sewer laterals that fail. That's pretty much out of money. They've taken 50,000 from manhole repair to fund it through the end of the year. But if we have too many of them, the thing that jumped out at me was that the homeowner will be responsible for 100% of it. And then the city will reimburse back following fiscal year what we would have covered. So my question was, well, what's that mean? What dollars and cents wise? Average $7,000 to $8,000 per lateral. And it's becoming more and more of an issue as the infrastructure continues to age. So I think it's something we need to be aware of. If this happens and we run out of money, suddenly the help that they were getting is not going to be there until the next year. You may get a few phone calls about it. The other thing I found out was that we're one of the few cities that actually do that. Most cities, that's all on the homeowner. So I think it's great that we do that, and that they budget for it. But it shows you the need when we run out, bust out 150,000 in a year just for sewer laterals.
Do you know if we have an income requirement on that? Like, is it
I
lower,
don't,
mid?
I don't
kinda?
believe so.
Maybe that's something we look at. You know, if you don't have the means to fix that, then sure, that program's really helpful. And I mean, no matter who you are, but we want to make sure that it's going to the most vulnerable people in our community to be able to have that repaired. So
I know that the program, the reason the city pays for, what the city's doing is paying for from the sidewalk
Right.
to the sewer main. So they're essentially paying for the section that is
oh, it's
technically the
ours.
city's.
Okay.
Right, but most cities don't even do that.
Right.
You have to pay all the way out to the main.
Yeah, and some of the mains, I have a house on Hyatt Street, kind of the older part of town. The main there is at 11 feet deep. So it's a significant, if you ever had to replace that, it's a significant project.
And it's probably as old as all of us put together.
Yeah.
That's how old our infrastructure is.
Well, I will say that's not something that the homeowner can go out and do with a shovel.
No.
Right? And a little trip to Home Depot over the weekend, it is something that generally is going to require a contractor to come and do. And can depend a lot on the distance, from the house to the street, for example, a house that's got a farther setback. And I will say, just like every other infrastructure system right now, supply chain is a problem. Costs have skyrocketed over the last couple of years just for materials. And because there's so much work, it can be expensive for contractor and labor because they can raise their rates because they got more work than they can get done. So where we can, our own public works crews will help, will go out and do that work for a homeowner to try and help address that. And we do have just phenomenal staff working on that.
We do. And it's not just
program.
putting the pipe in and filling it back up. Now you got to redo the sidewalk, make sure it's engineered properly, up to code, even though it might not be before you tear it up. Like my neighbors, it's not.
That was it.
All right, well, anything else from council?
I'd kind of like to talk about the fluoride thing just a minute, if it's time to, just because somebody from my ward came and talked about it before, and then I see the information that was presented to us. I can admit, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another about this, but somebody expressed it, and obviously somebody has a pretty strong feeling the other way, since they gave us 208 pages of sales brochure on
Local dentist?
yes.
Yes.
I talked with staff some on this, and just so people know the math of it a little bit, it cost us, I understand, $45,000 a year to put fluoride in which is, it's a lot of money, but compared to what the savings, the health savings that they say, it's not a great investment, but the people who handle it told me, I didn't know, it's the most toxic, caustic chemical they are exposed to in a bulk setting. It's a hazardous, high PPE kind of thing to handle, and they're not crazy about it. The facts that I see is, which they're not like this 208 pages, but Oregon is 49th out of 51 reporting with DC in fluoride in their water. We're somewhere, 22% of the people in Oregon have access to fluoride in the water. We rate as far as dental health, in the sources I can find, someplace in around 20. For example, Kentucky, who puts 99% of their people get fluoride in the water, they're in the 41% type range. So I know that's anecdotal and it's not as involved in this, but I think there's more to it. This much information almost makes me more suspect of it than trust it, because I don't ask, if I have a headache, I don't ask you to put aspirin in the water. At some level, the actual benefit of it should be weighed, and there's a reason why only 22% of people in Oregon have fluoride in their water. So I think that's at least something that we should discuss. In my opinion, and when I came into this, I thought more things should get in front of people to vote for it. I think the community should tell us what they feel about this. I don't think we should take a dentist and one person who complains up here and make any decision on it by any means, but I think it's a relevant discussion to have.
Yeah, I'm fine having the discussion. I do feel very strongly that we should continue with fluoride in our water. But, that's why we were elected up here, is to make those hard decisions for the community. So we don't have to go and ask them every time we want to do,
Well, I understand. I'm not
a
asking to
single,
ask
a
the
single
community
move.
every time.
So, yeah.
But at some point, these people right here shouldn't decide everything for Lebanon. And that's why I
Absolutely.
want more people involved. That's why I want people giving their opinions. And if somebody from my ward comes up and gives me an opinion, I'm not going to necessarily put my thought on it. I'm going to try to put the community's thought on it.
I think it's important to note, though, those 200 pages are peer-reviewed scholarly articles, also from the American Dental Association. So, I mean, we could talk conspiracy theories about, those agencies till we're blue, but they are peer-reviewed and scholarly reviewed by scientists, doctors, physicians,
Absolutely.
PhDs,
And there's also
chemists.
information from the Linus Pauling Institute in Oregon.
Absolutely.
That has conflicting information to that and doesn't have a financial interest in supplying us fluoride.
So just to put just to lay out kind of the options that the community would have and this council would have. I mean, there's really three. There's one, the community members at any time could petition to have it put on the ballot. The council could vote to put it on the ballot, or the council, I believe, I don't think it's prohibited. I think the council could vote to get rid of fluoride.
Well, am I correct?
I'm not
too?
saying suggesting
The
any of
Lynn-
those. I'm
Your Lynn County Conservative Alliance PAC, they did a fluoride, petition. Kim, can you speak to this? Am I correct on this?
Yes,
And they failed to get enough signatures, am I correct?
they have 2 years from the
Oh,
date it
okay.
was filed. It was filed with me last May.
Mhm.
So they had told me last summer, they wanted to get it on last November's ballot. They didn't have enough signatures. They were going to bring it back in December or January for the May ballot. Never heard from them. So they have until next May.
Great. Yes, I think that's a perfect example of our citizens getting involved. They've gone through the petition process and have
Just
2
to
years.
clarify,
Yeah.
I'm not here representing the Conservative Alliance.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
That's
it was
not
just
what-
in the
not what I
material
was
that
elected
came
to
to my
do,
door.
Michelle.
Yeah, I
Pretty
got
sure
you.
you know that.
Yeah.
And I don't expect you to come in and with a special interest to me.
No, I
All
just-
I'm saying is that.
It's the same group.
I think that
Sure.
I don't see there's any harm in us saying, hey, let's put it out there for the people to vote on. What does that hurt? Other than taking the control of that decision
Should
out of
just
these 6
demonstrate
people's
that
houses.
People didn't ask
No,
to have
that was a petition,
ballot.
and I'm not the legal guy, but I just heard that was a petition. We could decide to put it on a ballot. When I came into this position, that's what I asked Paul. One of the first things I asked him, how can we as a council get something out for the people to vote? And I was informed, tell me if I'm wrong, we can decide to put something on a ballot.
We absolutely can. I think
What would be the harm in
maybe
doing that?
maybe a gut check of just do we have, I mean, we'll take a formal vote at a later time, obviously, but is anyone interested in putting this on the ballot? I know I am not.
Well,
That's
I'm
a no.
trying to get some historical perspective. I remember when fluoride was not in the water, and I remember when it became on the water, and I don't remember how that came about. Was it a city council decision, or was it a vote by the?
It was not voted by the people, the city council.
I don't
decision.
know. I don't have that.
That's the information I got at least. So.
Because I almost.
6 or 8 people
I almost-
decided for Lebanon that they
I
wanted.
almost
fluoride.
thought that it was, I mean, in my head, I'm
That's
not-
kind of what was presented at the.
I thought it was a
that
vote
the-
too,
that
but.
it was voted on by the people, but I can't tell you definitively.
At least, and I talked straight about this a little bit, and I don't think it was. It was thought that it was by the council, but as we look back, we couldn't find a vote. We couldn't find anything on the ballot.
There was reference on several occasions to it having been voted on, but I don't think that we've been able to find that it was. Here's the summary that I have. This was from former clerk Linda Kaiser. In December 8th, 1999, there was a presentation asking counselors to add fluoride. In January of 2000, there was a public meeting hearing where the public was invited, and the council unanimously voted to direct staff to include fluoride in the system. And on October 15th, 2001, fluoride was added to Lebanon's drinking water.
Yeah, so I'm not inconclusive, I guess, but I don't think it was voted on by the people. And I don't understand the harm. I'm not asking it's something on a ballot. There are issues that the people should decide. We have a pretty good turnout here. I think we need that better. Sure, there's some color in it, but I want people
absolutely.
out there telling us, I don't want to make the decisions for them. I want to do what our town wants us to do.
Well, one, nothing should be decided tonight. 'cause
No,
it
it's
was
not
never
going to
on
be
the-
decided
No,
tonight.
no, I
I'm
mean,
just
but-
trying to
I'm just
figure
bringing it
out
up.
if is this coming back as a future agenda item, or are we putting it to bed?
I'd be open to discussing it just because I did some of my own research, and it's kind of one of those things you can find whatever you want to
Yep.
find, you know? But what I did notice is that all Stanford, Harvard, everything that came from a major university was generally pro fluoride. I couldn't find any of those studies that were, those really good, thorough studies that were against it. I could find lots of individual articles that were against it, or a doctor here that was against it.
Anecdotal type stuff.
Well, yeah, I
mostly.
mean, there wasn't a ton of studies that I could find that were against it. But I'm also not opposed to something like this that could, or it affects our health one way or other. It's either it affects it in a good way or a bad way. I'm not opposed to discussing letting the voters in Lebanon decide that. I think it's maybe something we could discuss more at a later date.
Absolutely. I certainly didn't come here want a decision. I'm not trying to sway
No,
anybody.
I
And
understand.
I personally,
Yes,
like I said, I
absolutely.
honestly don't, I'm not anti or pro. I'm really not. But when I see a document in front of me that presents it that way, I mean, there was topics in there that said how to fight an opponent of fluoridization. That, I don't want to be opponents about it. I want to do what our town wants us to do, and I want to represent that.
Just add a little context too, because I had meant to mention this. This was discussed at pretty good length in 2016 when we were designing the new water treatment plant. And at that time, we had a lot of the information was provided to the counselors. And again, this is just saying what came before the council. There was the same stuff. There was these hundreds of pages. There was hundreds of pages on the other side. There was a pub that was put on the agenda. And at that time, that was voted, and mainly it was because we wanted to know whether council wanted us to put the equipment into the new water treatment plant that would continue with the fluoridation as recommended by the EPA. At that time, there was the vote was close, majority 3. It was 3-2 to direct staff to continue fluoridation of the city's drinking water in the new water treatment plant. Now, I would say that I'm not sure that the two against it were necessarily against fluoride. I think they also were looking at the potential for whether it was worth the investment or whether they wanted to put it onto a
It
vote.
was the cost.
So that's the history. That's all I know.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well, I will say, yes, it should come back at a future agenda. We should have a robust discussion about it. I assume that will be, that is one of the things, in fact, when I talked to Mayor Jacola, when he first started that, he said, when counselors make a request to have things on the agenda, that was something he wants to do. So I think, I assume that that's gonna happen. So
I would,
it's a good thing.
I would just like to just tack in here, we are more likely to push this into something like July. So assuming that at the May meeting, we're talking about potential locations for overnight protection from elements. June meeting, I think we already have I know we've got budget. We have a couple of other public hearings maybe lined up for June. And just looking at kind of crowd size,
Sure.
Wanting to probably think about July as a potential in terms of agenda when we don't have other things that are likely to also have large crowds in
I understand
attendance.
this
So-
isn't the most pressing issue, and
And-
I'm not
and
trying to
that-
ramrod anything.
Well, and
I'm
it'll
just
let
trying to
us, it'll let
represent
us
something.
come in with information about election costs, about what it currently costs for fluoridating of water and have that discussion and see if you want to refer it to voters or not. That,
Also, what the investment was to put the system in at the time.
okay?
Just putting that in as another data point. Okay, any other comments from counselors? Okay, would public press comments, anyone in press, any comments? Public, any comments?
Talking about a curfew on the parks, Century Parks, and else there's a timer on the lights. They can play all night long.
Hey, Bill, can you use the mic so the people
There's
on the-
online folks
on the
listening.
on YouTube can hear you later on? I appreciate that.
I don't have that fanfare and stuff. That would help me retire.
Thank you.
But as I was saying, you got a curfew in the parks, Century Park, and else there's a timer on them lights. They can play all night long. Young people like me are in bed before 10 o'clock, so.
So you're
Another
not-
thing is, has nothing to do with any of it. When Wayne was talking about the water, when I lived in Central Oregon, I flood irrigated my pastures until I put an irrigation system in. But the neighbor below me had a cistern, say 1,000, 1,500 gallons. My pasteurized water went through the ditch to his cistern, and he put in X amount of gallons of Purex. It didn't kill nobody, purified the water. And I don't, at the time, I wasn't thinking about any teeth or that, so, but yeah, there's all kinds of ways to get to it. On my folks' place had a spring, and we would go up a couple times a year, scrape the dead squirrels and et cetera off the top of it. And I'm 86 years old, I ain't died yet from it. So that's all I got to squawk about.
Well, you're going to live forever, sir.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, our next scheduled meeting is April 26th, noon. It's a work session. Be there, be square. With that, the meeting's adjourned at 8.